Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Voices from the Mausoleum. In today's edition of Top 5 Influential Horror Movies, I have a new horror friend. So we have two names. We have Rhonda Jackson Garcia, and then she writes under the name RJ Joseph, right?
Yes.
So she's good. Okay. So she is an author. I'm gonna link a Amazon link below so you can go check out some of her books. She has plenty of things for you to check out and read. And we're going to be talking about her top 5 influential horror movies and why she picked them. So I'm ready when you are.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, the first story that I picked was Blacula.
Yes.
I think that was probably a given.
Yeah. A good one. I love that one.
Yeah. And I do have to just say, for the record, I did not see it when it was first run. I was only a year old when it came out.
Right.
And so, yes, I was born right around that time. I was born in the 70s.
Okay.
So by the time I saw it, I was like, not a year old, of course. I was like a bigger kid.
Sure.
And the reason why this movie just really stuck with me is, first of all, I mean, just very obviously, it was full of Black people.
Right.
Like a whole bunch of Black people, not just one, not just half, but like a whole bunch.
Whole cast. Yeah, most of the cast.
Yes, they were beautiful.
Yes.
They were so eloquent.
So talented.
So talented.
Yes.
So I just remember being struck by, that whole idea that hey, this is in color. So like I grew up on black and white reruns of all the monster, classic monster movies, Twilight Zone, Alfred Hitchcock, all this black and white stuff. And so to see Black people in Black people color, that was really, really striking for me as a youngster. And the idea that a Black person could be the monster, but then was a different kind of monster. Because the thing about Blacula is he really he killed people because that's what vampires do.
Sure.
But he was actually like kind of cleaning up the streets of LA there, so it was also that urban setting for me, because I thought, oh my gosh, he is in the hood with like working people. Like these are people that I live around.
Yes.
As I got older, I was also struck by the fact that there was a queer couple in the movie. And I thought they were not, the whole movie is probably sort of campy because it's Blaxploitation and that's sort of what they did. But like that queer couple, they were not there for like comic relief. They were just living their best antiquing lives.
Making money. Yeah,
that's all they were trying to do. And so I thought, this is really pretty good. As I got older, I really understood the significance of all of that. And especially like the way that Blacula got indoctrinated anyway. Like Dracula was literally trying to get him to help with, slave trade. And he was kind of like, no.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
Right. So that's why that movie was so striking for me.
I thought that was a great one. That's a fantastic pick. I definitely understand why you picked that one for sure.
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, and that's a really good segue into like the next one. I think that these are the things that impact me, I guess, because they are because they do look more like my life. Not just Black people, right?
No,
but like,
I know what you mean.
But like the issues, the things that I'm thinking about, the things that I find terrifying.
Right.
So like there's I noticed that now that you say that, there's a trend. The movies that are most impactful to me are those kinds of movies.
No, I love that though, because there's a lot of, I feel like there's a lot of film that tries to tackle these like more complicated conversations, or the ones, the conversations people don't want to have. And I think that the ones on your list all do that very well.
Yes.
And it's not, and I mean, there's something to be said for being able to cover these topics and still also having entertainment value, which is not an easy thing to balance. So
it is not. It is not. It's not an easy thing.
I agree.
So the next one was the Tales from the Darkside, the movie. Now I loved the whole thing. I loved the whole movie. the first thing about that movie that stood out to me was that that anthology format
Mhm.
is my absolute favorite.
I love it too.
And I think that that really, well, I know that it really informed me as a writer because I
Yeah.
write mostly short stories. So I
Right.
do write longer stuff,
Yeah.
but like, I will never stop writing short stories because that's how my horror writer brain works. Like
Yeah.
I think in these vignettes, like
I get it.
like you know,
Yeah.
Tales from the Dark Side.
Yeah.
But the most special story in that movie
Mhm.
was the lover's vow with
Yeah.
Carola and Preston.
Yes.
And I remember thinking when I saw her, Ray Don Chong is just beautiful. And I
I
remember
know.
thinking, oh, she she's the monster. She gets to be the monster.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
and she was the monster that whole time.
Yeah.
It was so, oh man, it hit me so hard the first time I watched it because I thought she had all this power. She had the
I
capability
know.
at any moment
To
to
just
just wreak havoc on that
yep.
whole town. And she didn't. She just
Nope.
didn't.
I know.
All she really wanted was like a family.
A
Like that's all
life.
she really wanted.
I know. Yeah,
That's it.
God, I love that. I think one of the moments in that one that like really just like hurt, like after she starts, she's transforming back, it's before we see the kids changing, and she says like, you promised, or she says, or you
Right.
didn't keep your promise, you lied, or something along those lines, and you're just
Right.
like, God, who hasn't been there? Like, it's so
Yes.
relatable. It's like you had one thing and it was going to cost you everything, and you did it anyway. For what?
Exactly.
God, it was
Exactly.
so that was my favorite one from that was my
Yes.
favorite as well. It's a good
Yeah,
one.
yeah. I mean, and as a woman, I mean, like, so I was like about 19 when it came out.
Okay.
I'm a young woman trying to navigate dating and all this
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I thought about that and I thought, all she asked you to do was just all you have to do is keep a promise. And
Yeah.
then of course there's that dichotomy there though, that's like
Yeah.
he loved her so much
That
that he
he
felt
just
like
couldn't.
he should tell her, but
Yeah.
then that was the very thing that unraveled them. Then, of
Yeah.
course, upon further examination, I thought, but I don't like that her kryptonite, if you will, was that true love.
Oh, I
That's the
know.
thing
Yeah.
that broke her down. And I thought, oh, but that was like the most wonderful love story, if you
Yeah.
will. And then
No, it
how do you,
was.
and there are times when you can tell somebody, I love you, but I could just cut your throat. I mean,
I
like,
know,
really?
really. I know.
I
Yeah.
could do that.
No, 100%. Yeah.
um, and so then there was Candyman, of
Yeah.
course.
Ugh,
Of course,
yeah.
Candyman is on this list.
Mhm.
It scared me so much when I first watched it. Like I was
Yeah.
so terrified by it. I was like, it's just insane.
Yeah.
But I mean, for some of the same reasons, but one thing that I liked that Candyman did was
Yeah.
it focused on kind of speaking someone into existence.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so there was this excitement that I had
Yeah.
about how the fact that people were talking about him
Mhm.
is what kept him around.
Yeah. Right.
He was only able to manifest because people kept him around.
Right.
And so when I was growing up, my mama always told us that you have to be very careful with words
Yeah.
because you cannot take them back once you say them,
Right.
and so they are very powerful. and
Mhm.
and then I thought about the oral tradition of storytelling
Sure.
that here in the South, it's a really big thing.
Yeah.
Here in my family, I mean, that
Yeah.
whole sitting on the porch, elders telling
Yeah.
stories, that's what we do. And
Yeah.
so I thought he is the story that they are telling
Yeah.
in their community.
Yeah.
And of course there was the urban setting, and I thought it's just really hard
Yeah.
to see people that live. I mean, I grew up in inner city Houston, and
Okay.
so this urban setting
Yeah.
is one that I love seeing,
Yeah.
especially in horror,
Yeah.
especially when that is not the thing that is frightening. Like it is
Right.
not the hood
It's
that's
not being used
frightening.
right.
Right?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
actually something in the hood that
Right.
you're afraid of.
Right. Yeah. No, I understand. Candyman was one that I saw when I was a lot younger. And I remember thinking as someone much younger watching it, that it was very boring.
Uh-huh.
And then I remember this kind of like, I guess we'll call it like an aha moment of when
Right.
I watched it in my, as a young adult, probably I would
Uh-huh.
say like mid 20s, early 20s. And so I remember watching it, and I couldn't tell you why I ended up watching it again, but I remember watching it, and it was kind of nice because I got to sort of fall in love with it for the first time.
Yeah.
Because
Nice.
Candyman is not meant to be this over the top scary movie. The things
Mhm.
about Candyman that make it scary is its basis in reality, and
Right.
what it's very blatantly discussing, and going into these stories of things that are not just completely made up things that could never
Right.
happen, that haven't happened, like. And I loved that story. And I think,
Uh-huh.
like, so I will say this: have you seen the new one? It's not really a
Of
remake,
course
but
I have. Yes, I have
okay.
written about it even. Of
Oh,
course.
oh. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you loved this one as well?
Oh my gosh, I did. Oh, I loved it. I did.
Yeah, I sat through, I got through the end of it, but I sat through the credits where they do like the puppet stories, like
Right.
the shadow
Oh,
puppets.
that was
And
my favorite part.
that was one of my favorite parts too. And I literally was like a move to tear. Like it
Yeah.
seriously impacted. That was one that I spent the rest of the night thinking about that movie,
Yes.
and thinking about the things that it showed that I have seen in my time as an adult. And it
Exactly.
hit me and lingered for a really long time.
Yeah.
And I
That's good
think,
art. That's
yes,
good art.
yes, yeah,
So, well, the last two we could almost, well, I don't know that we could talk about them together really. But Eve's Bayou
yes,
from 1997. Again, that was based in the South.
yes.
And so I was just in my most Southern, loving the whole creep factor thing.
Everything, yeah.
There's always this argument that Eve's Bayou is not a horror movie. And I'm like, to whom? Are you serious? Like,
Yeah,
I'm Black, I grew up in this type of thing, and this
yeah,
is indeed frightening, right? Like,
yeah,
and you have these issues with sort of like the Southern Gothic, right? You
yeah.
have this affluent family that where there are secrets, and you have the incest, you have the Black widow psychic aunt, you have
Yes.
the put upon wife, you have the powerful husband who actually isn't the strongest person in the story. And
Right.
so then you get all these viewpoints
Yeah.
that add in, and I'm like, this is a Gothic story.
Yeah.
Um, that's what it
Yeah.
is. And
Yeah.
I just loved the I loved Moselle. She was my favorite
Oh, I
character. Poor
know.
Moselle. She was a very
I
tragic
know.
character, but she was
Yes.
this wonderful character. And
Yeah.
I love that they talked about her being psychic. Like they
Yes.
because the Black conjure woman is a huge thing here in the South. Like
Yeah.
I love that homage that they paid to that,
Yes.
and the knowledge that the idea that there are things we just don't understand all the time.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's
and I
just what
think
it
with
is.
her specifically, they also did a really good job of not making it, I guess over the top is the best way to put it, but it wasn't
Right.
this like silly, you're the bad guy, like, I don't know, like there wasn't this like
Exactly.
dark cloud over her story as far as what she
Exactly.
could see or do.
Exactly.
And I love that. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I loved it. I mean, and
Yeah.
again, I love when women have power, especially
Yes.
Black women.
Yeah.
Um, I just really hate that, which is the case with so many of us sometimes, is that you have this power, you don't know really what
Yeah.
to do with it, and you end up being a victim to it yourself,
Yeah.
because you don't necessarily know how to harness it in a different
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was, I mean, it's one of my all-time favorites. And I thought, man, Southern horror is like the best horror.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm biased because I live here, but I'm
Right.
like, there's tons of stuff to be afraid of here, man. Let's
No,
write
that's
more of
true.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
let's write more of that.
I'm in the South too. I live in Georgia.
Oh, yes. So,
Yeah.
yes, I'm here in Texas. Yes,
Yeah.
you
So
are
we're not
very
too,
in the South.
yeah, we're not
Yes.
too far. Yeah. So it's funny when I saw that movie on your list, I thought, oh, I don't think I've seen that one. And then I started watching it and I was like, I've definitely seen this movie before.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I don't remember when I saw it, but I'm glad that I did revisit it because I wouldn't have been able to contribute to thoughts on it because it'd been so
Right,
long.
right.
And the only parts that I could really remember was the ending, was the scene with the sister and the dad, and then
Yep.
I remembered the party at the beginning, the kind of like, but there was a lot of stuff in the middle that I didn't remember.
Right, right.
But no, I loved it. I think it's, I always like to say that horror is subjective
Yes,
because I
it
mean,
is.
horror and by nature is just something that is horrific, right?
Right,
It doesn't have to be a ghost, it doesn't have to be a monster, it doesn't have
right.
to be people stabbing a bunch of people. Like it's just, it is whatever gets into your skin and
Yes,
brings on those feelings for you.
exactly. It is, it
Yeah.
causes discomfort.
Yes.
Like that's just it. It
Yes.
just causes discomfort. It makes you squirm for whatever reason.
Yeah. And I feel
Yes,
like that one does that.
yes. Oh, it definitely does. I mean, especially when these things come so close to home, like you kind of go, that could have almost been my family, except we're poor. And yeah, other than that, like everything else, you kind of go, okay, I know that. I know that. Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy. It's super southern and I love it. Oh, it was so wonderful.
Yeah.
Um,
They
yeah,
did
like
a,
and well, and then on the flip side though, like Get Out was like not southern. That was like a
yeah.
whole other, so yeah, so
Yeah.
that was one of those movies, well, a lot like East Bayou, where I thought things that scare Black people or me as a Black person anyway, what I would think of as the most terrifying thing, Get
Yeah.
Out just kind of stepped right into it.
Yeah.
And then of course I'm thinking about the invasion of the body snatchers when I look at
Yes.
this. And
Yes.
then I'm also thinking about the idea of slavery as a whole, is that you're actually controlling people's bodies. You're controlling their existence. And
Yeah.
so the thought that these people have figured out a way to do that without it being illegal, you know what I mean? Because like
Mhm.
you can't say that the person is dead, they're still walking around.
Yeah.
Their
What can
soul
you
is
do?
just
Yeah.
enslaved. What can you do, right?
Yeah.
And I thought that is the most treacherous thing I've ever seen in my life. So of course I'm torn
Yeah.
between standing Rose because I thought she is like one of the best villains ever.
Oh my God.
Like I
Yeah.
love evil women. I do. I love it when a woman is just leaning into her monstrosity. And I was like, homegirl is really just eating cereal, like dipping it into the milk. And who does that except for crazy monster people? But okay.
Right. No, for sure. Man, the symbolism in Get Out, like there are things that I still like. I've seen it a couple of times, and I still catch new things. So I had
Yes.
I was still in the corporate world when that movie came out, and I had this conversation with a guy that I worked with, and he was like, we were kind of talking about it. He was giving me perspective um as just somebody who wasn't white, which was great, a
Right,
great
right.
conversation. And when we talked about it, he started pointing out all these things that I missed that I
Uh-huh,
hadn't
uh-huh.
that I hadn't thought about, probably because I
Right.
didn't go into it with any expectations of what it was going to be like. And at
Sure.
that point, I'd only seen it one time. But when he talks about the taking of the two cereal pieces and
Yeah,
separating them, I was like,
yeah.
oh my God. Like I just start thinking about all these things. And I start thinking about when he pulls the cotton out of the damn chair. And I'm like,
Yes.
my mind, like I'm getting goosebumps, like just talking about it. Like that
Right.
movie is like, I don't know. Like it's just so much was put into that.
It was. It was. And
Oh
a
my
lot of that
gosh.
was because it was written by a Black person.
Yes.
Right. And
Yes.
so that, and so
Yes.
those things, those items, even the use of the buck, right?
Yes.
That whole symbolism there. I
Ugh.
think that one of the things that also that I picked up on, like in the first viewing of this,
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
that strange relationship between Georgina and Chris,
Yes.
where you could see these moments when she was trying to peek out, But
Yeah.
you know, of course, in my mind, I'm thinking, but isn't that the way it goes? Like, why is it her responsibility to try to save him? She can't even
Yeah.
save herself. So
Yeah.
I'm like, but that's the position I know I and a lot of Black women find themselves in, is like trying to
Yeah.
save everybody when we're already in a spot ourselves.
Sure.
Then he kind of was walking that line between being intrigued by her,
Right.
um, in ways that almost borderline like this sexual thing, like when he
Sure.
was down watching her as she was dressing
In the yeah,
upstairs in the
in the
window. Now, of
window.
course, as a photographer and an artist, you have to be very watchful.
Sure.
That's the excuse that I give my family and everybody around. Look, I gotta be nosy.
Excuse.
I gotta be nosy to do my job well. Okay.
Right. Yeah. I
So,
like that. Yeah.
you know, so he had to be very watchful in order to catch certain
Mhm.
angles, in order to
Yeah.
be able to tell certain stories through
Yeah.
his photography. But there was no other reason for him to actually be there in that way.
Right.
And so there was sort of an attraction between the two of them that was in itself kind of scary, because of course the whole time you're thinking, is she going to be able to help him? Is she ever
Yeah.
going to help herself?
Yeah.
What's going to happen to the
Yeah.
both of them?
Yeah.
What is going to happen here? Like what is going on?
Yeah.
And I had the distinct pleasure of watching it in a very full theater. You know, the first two times I watched it. Of
Okay.
course, I've seen it tons of times.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, you know, there's this thing that Black people do is you talk to the movie screen. And so throughout the movie, there's people saying, "No, don't drink
Don't
that
do
tea.
it.
No, don't do it." And then at the end, we all were like, "Oh!" I mean, there's like this collective, "Oh no, we know what happens when the police car shows up, and
Shows up.
I know this is not going to end this
Yeah.
way." And so when it didn't, I mean, the relief
So
and the
well
joy
done. Yeah.
was palpable in that
Yes.
theater. And
Yes.
I remember thinking, this is a cultural moment, because a lot of people will say, and I'm old enough that I've heard this all the time, Black people don't like horror. Okay, but I'm a Black people and I love
Right.
horror. I've been watching horror since I was a little kid. What do you
Yeah.
mean? How can you tell me that
Yeah.
Black people don't like horror? And
No.
so
Yeah.
there was this cultural moment where one thing that I do like about a lot of Black people I've met, they
Mhm.
will say to me wholeheartedly, "Okay, but I don't do horror really, but I'm going to buy this book with your story in it because you wrote it." Or,
Yeah.
you know, where you have kind of that support that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that was kind of a precursor to the whole Black Panther moment,
Yeah.
right? Like that was the moment of collectively, people will watch this if you give it to them. Like
Yes.
all kinds of people are going to watch this.
Yep.
And I think that another reason why Get Out was so impactful for me is also because it opened up this door
Mhm.
to where Black creators, like people now all of a sudden have these numbers and they go, wait, so you mean Black people will pay to write horror to read it? They'll go watch it?
Yeah.
Okay, well now we'll buy these
Now,
Black
right.
stories.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I cannot, I would be remiss to say that this movie did not open up that door a little bit. Now don't get me wrong, it's not like this double doors and they're wide open.
Sure. No,
That's
I know
not
what
the
you
case.
mean though.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
only cracked open a tiny bit, but you know, it's cracked open to where there's a toe in the door now for other Black creators
Yeah.
to be able to kind of try to come in and tell some of these other stories. And so I'm really excited about that,
Yeah.
because that is something that just had not happened for Black creators,
Right.
not my lifetime anyway. Like I came right, like I was born during that Black exploitation time period.
Sure.
And so then we kind of did this whole thing of just, you know, I don't know what we're going to do. Right. And so
Right. Yeah.
people are actually wanting this content.
Yes.
And so now, of course, the aftermath of the movie was this whole thing where the Academy or wanted to categorize it as a comedy. And I was like, of all the disrespectful things you can do, there were
Yeah.
comedic moments, but how can
Yes.
you say that you're going to categorize it like that's an insult? I
Yeah.
understand that Peele worked as a comic first, and he's a brilliant comic, right? I was
Yeah.
kind of heard when they said he was going to do a horror movie. I'm like, wait.
I said the same
Yeah, I
thing.
was like, is it going to be horror or is it going
I
to
was
be
like, I don't know.
horror, right? I was
Yeah,
like, is it
right.
going to be like
Yeah.
Sharknado, which I
Oh,
love, but it's got
yes.
its place, right?
Yeah, I love
It's got
comedic
its
horror,
place.
but I agree. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
I was like, oh, he went hardcore
He was
horror.
not playing when he made
He
that.
was
I
not
know.
playing.
And it took having somebody that already had a place in the room to be
Yes,
able to even do something. You know, if a
yes,
small black owned company or a small, whoever wanted to come in and do this film, it would not have had
no.
the
Oh
same
no.
backing. It took being somebody that already
Yes,
had a face, had a following, people knew who this was. And
yes,
it's sad, but it needed to happen. Like, it was a good thing
it did.
that it happened.
Yeah,
And I like, yeah. So when I heard that he was doing that he was involved in Candyman, I was like,
yes,
oh, done deal. Like, I'm absolutely going to see that. And do you
exactly.
pronounce her, is it Nia or Naya?
Now I'm not sure.
Okay, but
Yeah,
I will, like, I saw somebody share this on Twitter and I was like 100% agree. It was like, I will follow
yes.
her to the edge of the earth. I'm like
Oh yeah, me
100%.
too.
I
Yep,
will
me
watch
too.
and see anything that woman puts out. Like,
Yes.
I was so, like, she did such a phenomenal job. And
Oh yes,
it's
she did.
interesting because, like, when I know I didn't, like I said, when I went to see Get Out for the first time, I didn't have an expectation that would have been met by what it was. I just
Right,
thought it's going to be this interest. I knew it was going to be interesting. I knew it was probably going to have some very good conversation pieces in it as far as
right,
like what it
right.
was about. But and then what I really love about it? I love that he included these like over enthusiastic, supportive white people.
Yes.
I would have voted for Obama again.
Oh
Or
my gosh.
or when they get
Yes.
pulled over and she's like making this huge scene, and it's like, I
Yes.
can't even tell you, like, even being white, what I have
Yes.
seen from people who act that way. And
Yes.
it's so nauseating to me because it's just like, it's not even that you really believe in what you're saying. It's like you're just
Right.
trying to be this what? Like, I don't
Yes.
understand. And I've,
You're just
and
talking.
I've been through, where I grew up, I live around the city now, but where I grew up
Uh-huh.
was a little more small town. And it was, I was, as far as like numbers in my elementary, my middle school, I was in the minority. There weren't very
Mhm.
many, there weren't many white people. And I think I love so much about that though, because I think that if I had grown up in some of the places that other people in my life have grown up,
Oh,
the
sure.
way that I see the world would be so different.
It would be
Um,
so
and
different.
yeah, and I'm so thankful for that because, like, and you talked about, like you said, there's this like thought that, like, oh, horror isn't something that, Black people will enjoy.
Right.
So one of my like very, very best friends, like this person who, like, I spoke to him and he was like, you've got to do your horror stuff. You've got to, you're passionate, you're driven, you love it, is a horror fanatic who is
Yeah.
absolutely Black. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
he's like, our conversation, like when we first met each other, I don't remember why, but we were talking about his birthday coming up. And I was like, oh, your birthday's in October. He was like, yeah, it's Halloween. And I was like, oh my God, I would love for my birthday to be
I know,
Halloween.
right?
And I
Yes.
was like, so are you like a horror fan? Do you like horror movies and stuff? And I mean, immediately we were like besties. Like, we hit it off so
Yes.
well. I send him my videos. Sometimes we talk back and forth. I plan on having him on the channel at some point. Like,
Oh,
but I've
nice.
known so many people like that aren't
Right.
white. It's not a white
Right.
genre.
Right. Well, you would think, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that everything tends to start out kind of that way,
Oh,
though.
sure. No, that's fair.
Especially here,
That's
right?
fair.
Like,
That's fair.
because when I first started reading horror in the 70s as a kid, like I
Yeah.
was reading Stephen King, Dean
Sure.
Koontz, John Saul.
Okay. Yeah.
There just wasn't anything else for me to read. I mean, of course,
Yeah.
Poe, but I mean, that's Poe, right?
It's just,
you know,
yeah.
and so I read a lot of the classics, but I mean, that's still mostly white guys. And
Sure.
don't get
That's
me
true.
wrong, there are brilliant white guy writers in the horror
Sure.
genre, like
Sure.
some of my favorites. I mean, oh my
Sure.
God. So, because I mean, like Brian Keene, and whatever he ever puts out, I'll read it because I love his work, right? I
Yeah.
love Keene's work. And I'm going, so no, I'm one of the good things about only having one kind of writing to read is that
Sure.
I've read all of them.
Right. That's true.
So
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty well versed in all those, right? But
Yeah.
it's not the idea though is that you want the genre to be around for a long time. And
Yes.
so in order for that to happen, I feel like we just can't keep telling the same old stories over and over again. Like that's not going to draw new blood. We need other voices
Yes.
because what horror is so vast and it
Yes.
is so subjective. And so we need to have, writers from all these different,
Yes.
walks of life in
Yep.
order to keep the genre afloat, to
Mhm.
keep it interesting and to just keep it alive, honestly.
Yeah.
Because if we don't do that, it's not going to last very long. I
No,
know it's
I
been
agree.
around for like a whole lot of time,
Yeah.
but it won't be very viable if we don't keep it fresh that way.
Yeah.
And I mean, it should have been that way anyway, but since it
I
wasn't,
know. I
this
know what
is
you
a
mean.
new
Yeah.
direction that we can go over,
Yeah.
the new
Yeah.
direction we can go in. So, I
Yeah. And I
love it.
think
Love
I
that.
know it's a very it's a very slow moving thing as far as the minds changing and being kind of where we should be. Excuse me. But I think like we are starting to get to a place where there are at least people who can be vocal about wanting those different perspectives, about
Right.
wanting
Yeah.
to see like to know what these other situations look like from someone else's lenses,
Oh, sure.
and I've had conversations with adults in my life where they're kind of like when they started having more shows that had more homosexual couples or more mixed families, or it's like, well,
Yes.
now I have to see
Yes.
this all the time, and it's like, yeah, but they have felt that way about you this whole time. there's
Exactly.
there's never been like like I know someone who was like, I forget what the show was. It was a sci-fi show, I can't remember, but it was like, it was very the two of the main characters were
Uh-huh.
were I think gay men, I think.
Uh-huh.
And they were in a relationship and they were a very big part of the story, and that was so
Yeah.
unsettling. And I'm like, okay, but how many like sci-fi movies do we have that are driven by white heterosexual men? Like, give other
Exactly.
people the seat to do something different and better and unique. Like,
Exactly. Well,
yeah.
and especially not having walked in those shoes,
God,
right? Like
yes.
I like to see the stories that are not native to me, right? That
Yeah,
those are
absolutely.
that's
Yeah.
intriguing to me. And to me,
Yes.
some of the best stories are those that are not overdone.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so there's like this whole and not to trivialize all marginalized groups. Like I'm not going to be that person that says, oh, we're a monolith, because we're not. But like if you really think about it, like I just saw I've fallen into this holiday romance movie thing. I mean, I also write romance. I just
Okay.
haven't in a really long
Oh, okay.
time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and so I love romance movies. I mean, like some of my favorites are, like the rom-coms, right? And
Yeah.
so of course this time of year, this
They're
stuff is in abundance,
they're everywhere.
especially if you go to like the Netflix and
Oh,
Hallmark,
everywhere.
all of
Yes.
this stuff. And so
Yes.
I have been just feasting or actually gorging myself on all these that I missed. So I
Yeah.
saw this one that was on Netflix that was something like oh gosh, it seems like it's a remake.
Okay.
But the couple in it in this iteration is Asian.
Okay.
And I mean, when I say they were so funny, they were so funny, they were so sexy. And I'm gonna remember the name of it as soon as we get off. But
Right.
I remember thinking that the thing that kept the story interesting
Yeah.
were those moments of Asian experience.
Yeah.
Right? That
Yeah.
I was able to look at that and go, huh, well, that's almost just like the Black family. And I can see that. And that because
Mm.
these are all human experiences.
Right. They're not
And
just,
so
yeah.
that's the thing that I think that a lot of people miss when they get unsettled, like you say, by these things. That's the perfect word, is that these are still human stories. Like I also watched the one where the couple there were two guys who were best friends and roommates, and then the one wants the other to pretend to be his boyfriend and go home to his family for
Oh,
Christmas.
okay. Yeah.
And so it turns out that they really are in love with each other anyway. And I'm
Oh,
like,
okay.
that's one of my favorite tropes, like
Aw.
best friends to
That are
lovers.
just like,
Yes, and I remember watching it and laughing and then thinking, why are people so bent out of shape about this? This is two people who love each other, who have always cared for and support each other.
yeah,
Who cares that they're two guys? Who
yeah,
cares?
yeah,
I love it. I
yeah,
just like the love. I like the humor. I like the
yes,
family craziness.
yeah,
And these stories are more universal than people are wanting to give credit for.
that's true.
I mean, like, this
Yeah,
is the human experience. And so why are you worried about it? Are you human?
that's
Then
the
that
part that
story should
matters,
that should
right?
be okay. And even if you're not, you can accept that aliens have romances and
Probably, yes.
werewolves and vampires have romances, but
Sure.
you
I
cannot
that's like
see two
that's
black
the
people
best
having a loving
point.
relationship, really.
That's such a great way to put that too. That's such a
Yeah,
great way to put that.
it's like that's just so far out of your imagination, really.
That's
That's
taking
where
it
you
too
draw the
far,
line.
right?
Yeah, that's where you draw the line.
Yeah. God, that's such a good point. Yeah. No, that's a great point.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm so glad that I've had a little bit of time to kind of dig into those because I've kind of
Yeah.
missed them. Like there was a point when
Yeah.
I just stopped watching them because they were all the same. They all look the same. The people look the same. Of course, I love Brooke Shields. I did get to see one that she did, and it was set in like Scotland, I think.
Oh,
And so
okay.
that was even different for
A
me.
little
I'm
bit
like,
different,
I
right?
love
Yeah.
that. Yeah, like I love that. Like these are
Yeah.
different kinds of white people. They're from Scotland, white people, right? So that's great. I mean, I thought that was just awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
I
I
mean,
know
it was
what you mean.
yeah, it was a wonderful thing. So I mean, I think that people they worry about the wrong thing, is what it
Yes.
is.
Yeah.
Like, don't be worried about that part of the thing. Worry about the fact that if you don't let other people write, that this is not going to be viable.
Yeah.
Like, worry about that.
Yeah. No,
And
I
just
agree.
let people do what they want to do. Leave people alone.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think once you like and you talked about this in two of your movie picks, it's like putting art in this box. It's got to be this very like,
Yes,
heteronorm or whatever that box looks like for
exactly.
you. And it's like
Exactly.
I think it's so funny because some of my more like favorite kind of just like newer favorite, I guess, like horror movies. I've
Uh-huh.
really gotten into like Korean horror.
Oh, yes, 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 yes.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. And so like, but to your point, there are these moments sometimes with these families. Like I watched The Wailing is one that I saw not that long
Uh-huh,
ago.
uh-huh.
And there's this moment, I'll use this as a specific example, but I've only been a mother for a few years. My son is only
Mhm.
3 years old. And
Oh,
so I'm still very new to that experience. But
right,
when I see relationships, family relationships like that, it hits me so much different now. And in
right,
The Wailing, there's those scenes with the father and the daughter, and it didn't matter that they were Korean. I was
right,
just like, oh my God, if that was my son, I literally like, I don't know. Like it didn't even matter that it was father and daughter. Like it's to your
exactly,
point, it's the human experience this is what's happening to these people. I'm a
exactly.
people, they're people, like we are,
Right,
And
right,
so, no, I
right.
know exactly what you mean. I think that's a perfect point. And I love the way you put it with the werewolves and stuff. That's a perfect example. It's like,
Yeah,
that's all fine
yeah.
and good, but yeah.
Yes, well, and that nuance, like I love that nuance where you can see that this is very ethnic, or this is very
Yes.
queer, or
Yeah.
this is very, insert our nice marginalization here. Or
Of
this is
right.
very
Whatever.
ageist,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Like I love that
Yeah.
because I'm like that. That just means that these stories are all of our stories. Like we all can relate to these stories. Like, how can I say I can't relate to this lady in a romance because she's in a wheelchair? One of my favorite, oh my gosh, one of my favorite rom-coms is from the
Yeah.
90s, Notting Hill. With,
Yes. I know
yes,
that one. Okay.
oh my gosh, I love Julia Roberts. I love her.
Julia Roberts.
And
Awesome. Yeah. I love
and
her too.
like one of the couples, the wife is in a wheelchair.
Right.
And I'm thinking, why can I not relate to how much this man loves his wife just because she's in a wheelchair?
Right.
She loves him, he loves her.
That's
Yes,
it.
there are challenges. Yes, they didn't have a lift in their house, so he was carrying her around. I'm like, if he's able-bodied and able to do that, that means they get extra snuggles. She
That's
gets
right.
to cuddle with him on the way up the stairs.
That's
I
right.
mean,
That's
like, why
right.
would I not be able to relate to that? Like,
Yeah.
that's just insane. So I don't know. People need to be more self-aware, understand why
Yeah.
they're so disturbed. Why do
Yeah.
you care about that? Why is that the thing that you notice?
Yeah. You're dead on. Yeah. No, I agree. Well, I have loved talking about your list. I was very excited about it in general. Just because like I'm loving that people are picking things that are not these just like over saturated like
Sure, sure.
you know what I mean? Like like I
Yeah.
said, like the Jasons and the like I'm so like I don't think Friday the 13th, I don't think made it on anybody's list, which I'm fine with. But you know, like I like part of the reason I like so my first conversation was with Joshua and Marcella, and then
Uh-huh.
I made the mistake of underestimating Twitter. And I was like, hey, I need a video for January. Anybody interested? And I got all these people that were like super
Yes.
interested. And a
Right.
lot,
Good.
yeah, no, I'm eating it up.
Yes.
That is
I
not a
love
complaint.
it.
It was just at first I was like overwhelmed by it. And then after that kind of wore off, I was like, okay, this is amazing. And so, but no, like very few people have picked the same movies. And so
Oh, good.
far, even the two so far that had the same movie on their list said completely different things. And
Oh, I love it.
I know. And I'm like, so, and I have a specific film company that makes movies that I'm not a big fan of. And so when I watch, like, have you seen like Midsummer, Hereditary?
Oh, yes. Oh,
Yes.
yes.
Okay. So
Yeah.
A24 is like a really big one right now. Like
Right,
they're
right.
blowing up with their movies, which is fine if you know, I'm just not a super big fan of all their stuff. But I
Uh-huh.
have to say that having conversations with other people about
Mhm.
those films and what they loved, what was meaningful to them, what they
Yes.
noticed, you can't help but think and go, maybe I really should maybe watch it again. Like, you know, like
Sure.
I
Yeah.
just and I'm loving that. Like I love the perspective, like even the thing, even like you talking about putting art in a box. Like that wasn't something I even thought about when I watched Tales from the Dark Side, you know? And now whenever I go watch it again, that's gonna be like the first thing I think about, you know? No, I love it. It's great. I'm having a lot of fun doing these videos for
Yes,
sure.
yes. Well, I'm really excited for you. Like, I'm glad that you had me on, but I mean, like, I like
Yeah.
having this content to watch myself, right?
Oh, good.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of
Win-win.
selfish. Yeah, it's kind of selfish, right? But I love it. Like, I love
Yeah.
these channels where people are working in the community. I mean, like,
Yeah.
this is a really big service, and these are conversations that we need to have. So I'm
Yes.
really glad that people
Oh,
are
thank you.
chomping at the
Yeah.
bit to come
Oh
and
my
talk
God, me
with you
too.
so that you can stay around.
Oh, thanks. I love that. That's like the best thing I've ever heard. So you could stay
Yes, I
around.
love it.
No,
Great.
I do too. Well, I won't take up too much more of your time. Again, I thank you so much for taking time to come and talk to me. It's very meaningful to me to have people who are willing to discuss these things with me. So I really appreciate
Sure.
it. So thank you for sure.
Yes. Okay, yes, and thank you for having me. This has been a really fun time.
Yeah, we'll have to do it again later on when I have to redo my list because everybody else's list is
Yeah,
better than mine.
yeah, sure, sure. Because I have other favorites, like, because we
Yes.
can we can just have a different list, right?
Yeah, that's right. Just your next
Yes,
five. What are your next?
the next five, exactly.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You have a good rest of
Okay.
your night.
Yes, you too. Thank you.
Thanks. Talk to you later. Hey guys, thanks a lot for hanging out and watching our top 5 influential horror movies. I'm really enjoying doing these episodes. They are a lot of fun, and I am really enjoying the interactions I'm having with other people in the horror community. So I hope you are enjoying watching them as much as I am having them. These episodes will be also listed on our podcast, which will be in the description below. And you can go there to listen to the full episode without the cuts that we had to make for time references for YouTube. And yeah, make sure you circle back. There's going to be 11 episodes total. So make sure you're caught up on all of the ones before and after. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week and enjoy your weekend. We will see you in the next one.